The perfect intro music to the final edition of the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. We're going to finish out the 23-24 season mercifully for all of us Eagles fans. Start the It's All Over chant. Mark, you were a high school athletic director. You remember the It's All Over chant at basketball games when you beat the opposing team and the crowd was putting it to you. We're going to talk about one of the most historic collapses I've seen in sports. Now, I'm a guy who grew up in Chicago, and I remember the '69 Cubs. I still have sleepless nights over them blowing that lead to the Mets. '64 Phillies come to mind now that I'm a Philadelphian. I've heard a lot about the '64 collapse of the Phillies with Gene Mauch, but this really came out of nowhere. In baseball, you face hot pitching or your bats go cold. You can rationalize reasons why teams, don't finish. But in this case, the Eagles, after starting out 10-1 and being in the Super Bowl last year, totally fall on their collective faces. And we're going to talk about it. This is the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. Ken Dunek, Mark Eckel, sponsored by Jersey Man and Philly Man magazine. Our new January issue is for free on the website. Go to jerseymanmagazine.com and check it out. You can also get a hard copy subscription there if you like. And we're recording this today at Sweet Recording Studios in Mount Laurel. Joe Gangemi is the owner and produces our podcast. If you want to start a podcast, reach out to Joe at sweetrecording.com. All right, Mark, you and I were doing angry texts to each other all night last night while this game was going on. I'm angry, and I even like most Eagles fans, I'm a little more confused than I am angry. We've talked about some of the potential reasons for this collapse, but overall, what did you think of the performance last night? And we're going to go line by line of what happened and where do we go from here?
Well, the performance was despicable. It was
heartless, right? Heartless,
right. They didn't.
Gutless.
This was a playoff. All we heard about all week was,
we're starting at zero.
We're starting at 0-0. Yeah. We're going to be okay. Blah blah blah. This and that, and we'll get it back. They didn't try.
No.
They didn't look like they wanted to play. Especially the defense. Let's start with the defense. How many and the announcers couldn't get over. Aikman and Buck couldn't believe what they were watching.
Rightfully so. Right?
How many missed tackles?
I've never seen a defensive team that poor at tackling, and
they didn't even care. Some of them, they just didn't even get in the way. It was awful. It wasn't a professional effort by any stretch of the imagination.
That brings up a couple points. Number one, Jason Hargrave, who was on the Eagles last year, went to San Francisco, made the comment that San Francisco practices a lot harder than the Eagles do, which I thought was a telling statement. The other thing is, I've been at practice, and I went to what was supposedly the first live practice this year in training camp. There was no hitting. It was an hour and 20 minutes. There was no pads popping. If you look at the Detroit film of how they practice live tackling in training camp, and Dan Campbell actually rallied the troops and apologized. Hey, listen, guys, for us to be a championship team, we got to practice this shit. Okay, so I don't want you to get hurt, but we got to win, and this is what we're going to do. The Eagles don't do that. They just don't do it. I've seen it with my own eyes.
That's what I asked you that last week. What did they? And I said one of our texts back and forth, or I think we can put it online. What do they do? They're not prepared for anything.
No,
Todd Bowles' defense, just like the Giants' defense in the regular season, the last game of the regular season, they played a team that likes to blitz. I know that, and I don't even cover the stuff anymore. I sit back and watch now. I know that Tampa likes to blitz. I know the Giants, that's all they do is blitz. That's all Wink Martindale's ever done is blitz. They were not prepared for the blitz again. No hot route.
And what do you think is going to happen after that goes on film, really? Seriously.
Well, yeah, you're going to blitz them.
Yes.
Other teams actually watch film of the other team. You know what I'm saying?
Or you could be like the Eagles and think you're going to fool them, by thinking they're not going to blitz. But it's ridiculous. You have to be ready for it.
That's why it was embarrassing. It was an embarrassing performance. Tampa Bay's not that good, Ken. They're okay.
Hey,
they're okay. Give them
what did I text you offensively? I said they're making Tampa Bay look like the 49ers. Yeah. Here, our defense, right?
I said to you early in the game, and I said it, I put it on Tampa Bay, and I watched that game because it was my local game. Tampa Bay played Carolina in a game Tampa had to win the South,
Mm-hmm.
and they did. They won 9-0.
Yeah.
I know
Could have
their
scored a
defense.
touchdown against
They scored
Carolina.
9 points against arguably the worst team in football, Carolina Panthers. Right there, they won 2 games. They scored 9 points. They scored 10 against the Eagles in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
What's that tell you?
So
32. They scored 32 in the game and could have had a lot more. How many touchdown passes did Tampa drop
So
last?
incredible. It could have been much worse. So the first reason I have written down is lack of heart and lack of discipline, which obviously the Eagles showed in spades last night. Number two, poor fundamentals. Have you ever seen, and we just touched on it, a poor tackling team in the National Football League? Not only poor tackling, but how many times is the middle of the field going to be left wide open until you fix that? I mean, I don't know what the fix is. And normally, Mark, when we do these podcasts, I have time to really look at the film. I'll pull up Baldy's comments and some other people so I can get a better handle on it. I don't have as much of a handle on it because it was a late game and we're recording this early today. But the wide open middle of the field has never been addressed, and that's been going on really for the last couple of years with the Eagles.
Even when they were winning, that was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
They overcame it in some ways, but it's just a mess. And I mean,
how about let's go to execution?
One guy came to play last.
Yeah, Smith.
Devontae Smith. He came.
Absolutely.
I'll give him all the credit in the world. He came to play. He did.
Actually, I was looking for bright spots. The punter did okay last too, man. And a 47-yard.
We got to talk about the punter, right?
I'm sure he'll appreciate the mention in the podcast. He might even tune in. But let's go to number three. Poor execution, and we talked about it again briefly. The inability to handle the blitz. Now we've always said there's two ways to handle a blitz. Number one, you block it. Or number two, you run side adjustment routes with the receivers, which they actually were forced into doing a couple times later in the game. But again, it seemed like they weren't ready for that. They were having trouble blocking it up. They knew it was coming, and the receivers were running like 15-yard stick routes, and Hurts had no place to throw the ball.
No, it was everything. It was the lot. Hey, not for nothing, but everyone keeps saying how the Eagles have the best offensive line.
Oh, yeah. Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach ever.
They had the best offensive line in football. It's not what it was. It got old.
And it's going to get worse because Jason Kelce announced his retirement.
Well, about time. Yeah. It's about time. He was done.
Although I still think he could have squeezed another year or two out of it.
But it's time. It's time. He doesn't want to go through this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He made his mark.
We said the same thing about Jason Peters a few years ago too.
We were right.
He's still cashing a paycheck though. Somebody's paying him. How about this, Mark? How about the lack of leadership on both sides of the ball? Now you've got Fletcher Cox on defense, who's been there, I believe, 13 years. Brandon Graham, who last night surprisingly said he wanted to come back for another year. I guess he wants another paycheck. But so those are your defensive leaders. And offensively, your quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is supposed to be the leader. Well, when they were winning and Jalen Hurts was on the bench by himself, meditating, contemplating whatever he was going to do, I was okay with it because my head's in the game. I'm thinking about the next play. I'm not too excited about our recent success. But when the team's going bad, you got to be racing up and down that sideline and firing up the troops. And he sat there by himself to the point where he and Dallas Goedert had words last night, I believe in the third quarter. So, I mean, that's a telltale sign of this team is lacking leadership on both sides of the ball.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not just, to me, leadership starts with your coaching staff. And we'll get to that, I'm sure, but he's not a leader. Sirianni's not a leader. He's a cheerleader, is what he is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like a lot of these younger up-and-coming coaches who feel very fortunate to have the job, and he should, is that he wants to be everybody's friend. He wants the players to like him. He thinks that will make the players play for him. He defends the players at every post-game press conference, even though it's obviously they're not doing their job. He takes the heat. Hey, I get it. It's a page out of the Andy Reid book. I understand that. But at some point, somewhere, whether it's in public or not, you have to hold the players accountable because they're the ones on the field that are supposed to be making the plays.
Yeah, I don't care what he says in press conferences. I really don't. I mean, I don't even know why they have press conferences anymore because
because they're really not press conferences. But
no, they're not. And like you said, Andy never said anything. He did every once and again, and when you did, it was like whoa. But when I want to know what he's saying. Just like I want to know what they do on Wednesday and Thursday at practice. I want to know what he's saying to the guys when they're in meetings and when they're is he coddling them there as well? Because it seems like it. I mean, nothing gets fixed. The same mistakes they over the last whatever, even early in the year when they were winning and they were getting some fortunate breaks to help them win. Like Kansas City guy drops the touchdown pass. Um, Dak steps out of bounds. I mean, there was a lot of they won some games. Hey, you win. That's all that matters, and that's what we kept saying: wins a win to win. But it all caught up to them, and now they can't beat anybody. Are they the worst team in football right now?
Well, I will tell you this. I've got some stats. Since the 49ers loss in week 13, and by the way, a couple of events happened around that loss that we're going to talk about. They are 31st in the league in win percentage. They have 32 teams in the league, so they're next to last. 31st in opponents' points per game, next to last. 31st in point differential, next to last. And dead last in turnover differential. This is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year and started out the season 10-1. So, what happened around week 13? Well, a couple things happened. Number one is Dom DeSandro got suspended. Now, unless he's the director of football operations and has a hand in calling offenses and defensive, I don't think that was one of the reasons why. The other thing is they made the defensive coordinator change. They were frustrated with the losses to San Francisco and Dallas. They make this change, and the entire thing falls apart. My question to you is when you see the team struggling and you know it's going downhill, would an experienced coach go ahead and make another change to try to salvage the season? If I'm Sirianni, I'm calling offensive plays. I don't care what feathers it ruffles in the staff. I'm going to call those offensive plays, and I may make some defensive adjustments. I don't know if I go as far as changing the coordinator back, but I would certainly make some adjustments internally to make sure things are we right the ship. And to my knowledge, none of those things happen.
Well, it didn't. If they did, it didn't translate to Sunday or
Right.
Monday, whenever they played. I mean, it was just like I said. I don't know what they. It looks to me like the coaching staff just said, "Hey, we got good players. Go out there and play, and we'll win."
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that. Everybody's got. I mean,
Well,
the NFL's pretty balanced. It's
we
not like
talked about it, the line last week, that the Eagles were actually a 3-point favorite. And I said there's no way they could be favored against any professional football team, especially on the road. And the only reason why I didn't unload and make a lot of money on Tampa last night is number one, I don't like to bet against the Eagles because I'm really rooting for them. I want them to succeed. But the line didn't move, and I thought a lot of sharp money late would come on Tampa Bay, and it actually went the other way. The line jumped to 3.5 late in the evening. So the Eagles fooled everybody. They fooled the prognosticators, they fooled the experts, and they fooled the betting public.
well, I guess people were buying into where it's 0-0 and we'll start again, and they did beat Tampa. See, here's the thing too. Um, you mentioned earlier that I was an athletic director for 4 years at a Trenton Catholic Academy up in Jersey, and one of the things I judged my coaches on was our conference games because we played everybody twice. How did we do the second time? You know, if we beat them the first time, we better beat them again the second time and beat them better. If we lost the first time, I want to see us beat them the second. Well, the Eagles beat Tampa Bay early in the year, lost to them the second time.
They beat them. Not only did they beat them, they had over 200 yards of rushing against Tampa Bay. Last night, they had a total of 42 yards rushing. DeAndre Swift had carried it 10 times for 34 yards. Hurts one carry for 5 yards, and Gainwell 4 carries for 3 yards. Totally inept with the rushing game, and that's my point about, to your point, coaches making adjustments.
They didn't do. They
Todd Bowles,
never.
Todd Bowles made the adjustments. He
Yes.
took the Eagles out of the rushing game and blitzed so they couldn't pass. So you talk about getting out coached
It
in a
wasn't even
game.
that. That's what I'm saying.
They were
So
undressed.
they played Dallas twice. They beat Dallas the first time, got blown out the second time. They played the Giants twice. They barely beat them the first time, got blown out. And I didn't mean much, but still, they were embarrassed by a bad New York Giants team. Washington they beat twice, but Washington's just bad. They were bad, but both games Washington stinks. They have the second pick of the draft for a reason, and if Ron Rivera was really Riverboat Ron, he would have gone for two and tried to beat him that one time. So I didn't. The coaching staff was bad. It was bad from top to bottom. It was obvious that Stryken and Gannon were the brains of the operation and ran the show last year, and they got to the Super Bowl because of those two guys, not because of the clown that has the head coaching job, and he's a clown. And I don't like clowns.
So let's talk about the offense. 0 for 9 in third down situations yesterday. I mean, just totally inept. How about the Hurts taking the safety when he could easily have dumped that ball, and he holds on to it until he's in the ground? I thought he was down, but they called it intentional grounding for the same thing. It was the safety, but
that ball's on the 14-yard line, Ken.
Exactly, and that doesn't he just looks unsure back there, doesn't he? He looks like he's not prepared for what's going on. It seems hard to believe.
He looks like he doesn't want to be there either.
That's true. I would agree with that.
That's why I asked. I think he wants to go in the transfer portal again.
Doesn't he have 250 million reasons why he would want to be there, though? I mean, shouldn't that be some incentive?
There's something missing with him. He just doesn't look interested. That's not good.
Yeah, and like I mentioned his demeanor before, but there comes a point where you got to drop the cool and you got to fire up the troops. How about defensively? They allowed 150 yards after the catch, 157 yards after the catch yesterday, the most the Eagles team has given up in a playoff game since 2009. I mean, the lack of coverage skills, the lack of tackling, the embarrassing play, I believe it was in the third quarter, and I forget who scored the touchdown for Tampa, but Bradbury missed the tackle. It would have been a 6-yard gain. And then Byers, the safety on the side, totally overruns the play, and the guy goes in for a score. I mean, it makes no sense to me how experienced football players that have been in the league this long could make those mistakes, poor tackling fundamentals, take bad angles. It just nothing makes sense.
Well, again, it starts with I'm done with talking about the coaching because I think I made my feelings clear about what I think of the coaching staff. But let's take it a step above that. Howie Roseman, who everyone has crowned the greatest general manager of all time, didn't have a good year. He re-signed Bradbury to a big contract when he could have said, all right, the guy had one good year for us last year, but maybe he's not all that. And that's his job to figure it out. It's not fans fans want to spend the money, sign this guy, sign that guy. Well, a general manager has to be smarter and know who to sign, who not to sign, who to go after, who not to go after.
They let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson walk.
Let him go, and they kept Bradbury.
How about Edwards? They played well for Chicago this year. How about Derek Barnett, who's playing pretty good for Houston right now?
He did, and that might have been a wake-up call. I can't kill him for getting rid of Barnett.
I kind of agree with that because Barnett was treading water when he was here.
Yeah, but then they bring in all these. Every week they were signing another washed-up veteran, whether it was a kid from Tennessee, Bear.
Listen, I was staying near my phone. I figured I might be the next washed guy up the deck.
Hey, you did sign. They brought in Shaq Leonard.
Yeah.
I told you.
I think he made one or two plays. Hey, by the way, speaking of names, did you hear Jordan Davis's name one time last night? Did you hear Jalen Carter's name one time? Did you hear Hassan Reddick's name one time last night? Did not. These are supposed to be 3 premier defensive linemen. Did not hear their name on the broadcast.
I'm telling you, one guy showed up last night, Devontae Smith. He played his heart out. I can't rip him. He really
does. You talk about a kid who gets the most out of his physical ability and talent. I mean, he's a gamer, man.
I'll tell you what. Another kid that did play well was that Milton Williams.
Yes, he did.
He played hard last night. He made some plays. He seemed like he was trying. But other than that, it looked like they just couldn't. They wanted the season to end.
How about the breaking news that the tush push gets stopped? Oh, but by the way, there was a face mask on that play, so they really should have done it again. But that was kind of interesting.
Again, would you have done that? Would
No,
you have
because
taken the
the
point
extra
off the
point
board?
didn't make any difference at
That's right,
that point. I
exactly.
mean, it was
It did make a difference because I mean, not that as it turned out, it didn't. They lost by 23.
right.
But I'd rather be down 16-10 than 16-9.
Exactly, and
But
but
down
don't you think
19-3.
like a lot of these coaches, it's a macho thing, and even Dan Campbell does this a lot. Oh, we're gonna go for it. We're gonna try to. Well, there comes a time when it doesn't
Just
make
take
sense
points.
to do that. The
Right.
1 point right there is more valuable than the risk of losing it. So just take the point. I get it. I get you got an unstoppable play, but last night it was stopped. And
You took the
but
field
if the
goal off the
point
board
makes a
too.
if the point makes a difference,
Then you then
go
by all
ahead and
means,
do it.
right?
Yeah. If not, it doesn't really do whole lot for you.
I
Some
had the
other
under. I was kind of happy.
so, some other numbers. Total yards last night: Tampa Bay 426, the Eagles 276. Tampa Bay, the inept offense gashes our defense for 426 yards. Baker Mayfield, who's been on what is his third or fourth team now, 337 yards last night, 3 touchdowns. I
It
mean,
should have
come
had
on.
more.
Should have had more. They dropped a
Yeah,
few
they
balls.
dropped like 6 balls and 3 of them were touchdowns.
Yards per play, Tampa Bay 6.2 yards. Tampa Bay 6.2 yards per play. First downs. The inept Tampa Bay offense has 23 first downs to our 13. We were 0 for 2 on fourth down conversions. I mean, it just it
0 for 9 on third down, 0 for 2 on
yeah,
fourth down.
it's just mind-boggling. So, let's spend the last few minutes talking about where do we go from here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Jason Kelsey announced to the team last night, and it's being reported in the media this morning that he is going to retire. Probably the greatest center in Eagles history, and certainly a Hall of Fame candidate. Brandon Graham came out and said that he wanted to play one more year, which I found interesting. I thought this would be a good way for him to go out, but he thinks he's got some more left and wants to do it. And a lot of people are speculating that was Fletcher Cox's last game. Um, if all these things are true, what do you think of those 3 players, and where do they go down in Eagles history?
Oh well, like you said, Kelsey's a Hall of Fame candidate and probably a Hall of Famer. I'm going to leave candidate out. Yeah, but without a doubt, the best. I didn't see Chuck Bednarik play, but he played both linebacker and center, so
I
that's
didn't
on the
I didn't see him play, but he was in a
okay.
locker room a lot in
Oh
1980,
yeah.
and he was the scariest old guy you ever saw in your life, man. I'm telling you, you did not want to say anything to that guy to make him mad.
But yeah, Kelsey's probably the best center, pure just center in Eagle history. Brandon Graham, it's funny. I covered his, when he was drafted. Well, Kelsey was like a low pick. We didn't even think of nothing when he was drafted. But
Right.
Brandon Graham was an early first round pick that his first few years, he looked like a bad pick.
Well, because he was a little undersized, a great motor,
And he
but
had some
undersized.
injuries and he didn't, yeah, it like the light bulb came on for him about the fourth year. It took a
Hmm.
while, but then he became a very solid. I mean, he's not a Hall of Famer, but he might be an Eagles Hall of Famer.
Probably an Eagles Hall of Famer, I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say.
and he had the biggest play in Eagle history when he
Right.
had the strip sack of Brady in the Super
Right.
Bowl. So that's what he'll always be known for. And Fletcher Cox again, um, not a Hall of Famer, but a very consistent, good defensive lineman that again got better. I thought as his career went on, he was okay early. He was never bad. Like Graham looked bad early, but Cox was good right from the go. But he got better and better. I think going from a 3-4 to a 4-3 helped Cox's career a little bit too.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the coordinators. First of all, I want to say that I stand by my theory that I talked about Dom DeSandro. The other thing that happened was I truly believe that the front office dictated that change to defensive coordinator to a New England guy, to Matt Patricia, who you acknowledge that the Eagles brass loves the New England guys, so that's a move that probably made sense to them, but I really think it backfired. Does Sirianni keep his job, number one? And number two, will they make him fire both coordinators? And if he doesn't, obviously that will cost him his job because he did the same thing to Doug Peterson.
I don't think Sirianni gets the option. I think he's gone.
You think he's gone?
Yeah, I do. I
Mhm.
think.
And
Well,
you
here's
and you think Bill Belichick's the guy?
I think they're going to try.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know Bill well enough to know what he's thinking. I mean, he already interviewed with Atlanta.
Right.
That's the guy I think Lurie's going to go hard at. Now there's a consolation prize now, and it might even be the better prize is Mike Vrabel.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many good coaches available this stretch.
How about Harbaugh?
He would never come to Philly.
No,
but that's okay.
Why? Why?
I'll tell you off the air.
Wait a minute. I can't wait.
He's taking the charges.
Let's end the podcast now so I can hear this news. That'd be great.
He's taking the charges. I'm pretty sure of that. But I don't. Here's the question that Jeffrey Lurie has to ask himself. Things are wrong, right? Things are broke.
Obviously.
On the whole, from top to things are broke. If you believe, you have to ask yourself this question: can Nick Sirianni fix this? If the answer is, oh yeah, no, Nick can fix it, then keep him. Let him fix it. But if there's any doubt that you don't think he can fix it, then why prolong this? Why throw away the 2024 season with a guy that you don't believe can fix your problems?
So let me ask you this: are you going to lay the blame on Sirianni if, in fact, it was Lurie and Roseman that dictated that defensive coordinator move? Are you going to lay the blame on him, even though he, from in my perspective, I don't think he wanted to make that move. I think it was forced on him. Do you blame him for that?
No, I can't blame if you're right. If Roseman and Lurie said hire Patricia, well then if that's the case, and you're probably right, then this guy has no authority anyway. So
that's why they hired him. That's why they hired him. They want to tell guys what to do. That's why I'm against the Bill Belichick theory, because I don't think they're ever going to let anybody tell them what to do. I just don't. But listen, I kind of hope you're right, because that would be a lot of fun having Belichick in town and watching his sour puss at the press conferences. And, man, you might come out of retirement, wouldn't you? Go ask Bill Belichick.
No. Oh, no, I don't want to deal. He's hard to deal with.
I know, but it's got to be fun.
Maybe one game. Maybe I'll come back just for a spot, like a cameo.
That'd be great. That'd be great to have you back in town. Hey, listen, this is going to be our last podcast for the season. Now, Mark and I will be back occasionally to talk about breaking Eagles news, whether it's a coaching change or the draft or training camp or some other stuff that's been going on. And again, Jersey Man Magazine, our sponsor, we thank them for what they do for us here. And Sweet Recording Studios, Joe Gangemi is a pleasure to work with. And I encourage everybody, if you want to start a podcast, contact Joe at sweetrecording.com. And Mark, it's been an interesting year. Always a pleasure working with you. And I look forward to continuing it later this year and certainly for the 2024 season. So thanks for being a part of this, partner.
Thank you, Ken. And we might be back in a week or two.
Listen, you never say never with this team. But that's going to do it for this edition of Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. I'm Ken Dunek for my partner, Mark Eckel. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.